All right, we ended 201 talking about the nervous system. So we're going to pick up with the endocrine system because it is also a control system in our bodies. The organs of the endocrine system are very complex, and the way they work is they make and secrete chemical messengers that are called hormones. And the hormones will interact with very specific target cells, and they will influence the cell's metabolism and how it works. They may also influence and work in cells that are in the extracellular fluid. Now, the endocrine and the nervous systems work together to maintain homeostasis. So they both communicate using chemicals. The nervous system uses neurotransmitters, and the endocrine system uses hormones. That's the major difference in the two. The effects of the neurotransmitters from the nervous system are immediately felt, but they're very short-lived. As soon as the neurotransmitter is gone, the stimulation ends, and whatever happens in response to that stimulation ends. But with the endocrine system, they're not in close contact with the cells that they have as target cells. The hormones are going to be secreted into the bloodstream, and then they travel and go to different target cells. For instance, the hypothalamus in the brain will maybe influence cells in the ovaries. But the hormones effects can occur within seconds, or it could take hours or even days. But once that hormone's effect occurs, it's usually longer lasting. And the reason is because it has to go all the way through the liver and the kidneys to be cleared. So it's going to have a longer lasting effect. Now, the hormones and the neurotransmitters, those are just some of the chemical signals that the body uses. The body uses paracrine chemical signals. This is where para means next to, and crine is to secrete. So these are chemicals that are secreted by cells, and they go to nearby cells, but they don't have to be the same kind of cell. Autocrine, auto means self, so these are chemicals that cells secrete and to the interstitial fluid, and it will go to cells that are like that original cell or like that cell type. And you can see here what I'm talking about. Endocrine, endo means inside. So an endocrine cell secretes into the bloodstream and affects cells all over the body. But paracrine secretions, you've got the tissue cell there that's going to secrete into the blood, and it will affect cells that are nearby. But they don't have to be the same type of cell. Autocrine, its secretion goes into the bloodstream, and it will affect other cells that are like the original cell. Now, endocrine, as we said, means inside. Endocrine glands, these are organs of the immune system, or excuse me, of the endocrine system, and they are all over the body, and they control other cells by producing and secreting hormones. You've got your ductless glandular epithelial cells that secrete hormones into extracellular fluid. This system, the endocrine system, has two groups of organs. There's the primary organs that only have an endocrine function, and they only make hormones. And then there's the secondary organs that have an endocrine function and a non-endocrine function that we'll talk about. Now, the primary endocrine glands, anterior pituitary gland, that is in the sphenoid bone in the skull. It sits in the sella turcica. You've got the thyroid gland in the anterior neck. Back behind that, on the back side of the thyroid gland, you've got 3 to 5 parathyroid glands. You've got the adrenal cortices, which is the outer part of the adrenal glands that sit on the superior side of each kidney, like a top hat. You have the endocrine pancreas. Now, the pancreas is a digestive organ and an endocrine organ. We're going to talk about the endocrine part in this chapter, and that sits posterior to the stomach in your abdominal cavity. And then the thymus gland that sits on top of the heart in the mediastinum. The secondary organs, the heart, the kidneys, the small intestines, the testes, and the ovaries. Now, neuroendocrine organs, neuro means nerve. These are secondary endocrine organs. This would be the hypothalamus and the pineal gland up in the diencephalon of the brain, and the center part of the adrenal gland, the adrenal medulla. And they have nervous tissue, but they secrete chemicals that act like hormones that we call neurohormones. So this is where they all are, and you can see what I'm talking about here with the different organs. You've got the hypothalamus up in the diencephalon. You've got the anterior pituitary that sticks down on the stalk from it. Then in the neck, you've got the thyroid, and back behind it, on the back side of it, the parathyroid glands. Here is the mediastinum. You've got the thymus gland sitting superiorly on the heart. And then sitting on top of the kidneys like little top hats, you've got the adrenal gland, and you've got the adrenal cortex around the outside, and then the inside is the adrenal medulla. Right in here is the inside. Okay? And then you've also, of course, got the ovaries for the female, and the male has the testes, of course. Now, hormones, chemical messengers made by endocrine glands, and they control other cells. There are 4 features that all hormones have. First of all, once they are released, they can affect cells all over the body. And as we mentioned earlier, they're carried in the bloodstream. They can cause an effect almost immediately within seconds, or it could take hours or even days for it to happen. It varies minute to minute how much of a hormone is in your bloodstream. They can travel unbound. These don't last as long. They are not bound to plasma protein carriers, or they can travel bound to these plasma protein carriers, and they last a lot longer. They circulate in the bloodstream, and then a target cell takes them up, and they get broken down, and then they filter through the liver and the kidneys to be deactivated. How much is in your blood varies minute to minute. It depends on things like how much is being made, how fast it's being made, and how fast it's being removed. But an aging body can't remove them as fast as a younger body can. The target cells are where the hormone is going to have an effect. They only work at the target cell if the target cell picks them up. And the target cell has these specific protein receptors that the hormones have to bind to. And they are in the plasma membrane, or else they can be in the cytosol or the nucleus in the target cell. But they are very specific. It's like pieces of a puzzle. The hormone has to fit into the receptor exactly. And they alter everything that's going on in that cell, all the metabolism of that cell. The receptors depend where it's found, whether it's in the plasma membrane or in the cytosol or the nucleus, depends on the structure of the hormone. If it's hydrophilic, hydro means water, philic is to love, then it can't get through the plasma membrane. So you're going to have receptors on the target cell's plasma membrane for the hormone to bind to. If it's hydrophobic, it is water-fearing and it has no problem getting through that lipid bilayer. And so the receptors are going to be inside in the cytosol and the nucleus of the cell. The number of target cells, let me back up. The number of receptors that a target cell has depends on the needs of the body. They will have, if your body has more of a need, it can upregulate those number of receptors, increase the number of receptors so that you can have a higher hormone level in your blood. But they can also downregulate where they decrease the receptors, and you don't have as much of the hormone in your blood. And this can happen when you have too much hormone, or if you've taken a hormone for a very long time, your cells will downregulate, and the hormones can't bind to the target cell receptors, and so they have no effect at all.